Welcome to Dancing with Water. I'm your host, Jennifer Mulak, here with my co host, Teresa Whitman, and our lovely guest, Gabrielle Heron. Thank you for being here, Gabrielle. We're really excited to talk to you and about what you have going on. I'll start with reading your bio and then we'll get into it. Gabrielle Heron is a performance artist and ceremonialist known as the Encouraging Priestess. Through her self-marriage project, she's guided nearly 2,000 people to marry themselves. She lovingly messes with wedding tropes, rewiring how identity and sovereignty are claimed. She invites you to marry yourself, your projects, and other people too. I love that the other people too is like, oh yeah, if you want to marry other people, that's cool too.
Yeah, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. So you have been doing this Marry Yourself initiatives for 20 years. It's like your 20-year anniversary.
2026.
And the Goddess Party this year is doing a whole wedding ceremony and using some of this as part of
Absolutely.
that,
This is the
right?
theme.
Okay.
That wedding event is about marrying yourself.
Mm-hmm. So let's just start with the basics. Well, I don't know if it's that basic. It's a basic question, but maybe not a basic answer. But like, what does it mean to marry yourself? Why would I want to marry myself? Give us all the scoop.
Okay. So, marrying yourself means deciding what it is that you need and ritualizing it in a way that sticks.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can do any number of things to make that happen. You could start with a to-do list, but in ritualizing, you really rewire your brain, ideally,
Mm-hmm.
to help you remember when you have dark times or when you do need to celebrate good times. It just sets out like a map of obstacles, like any wedding does,
Mm-hmm.
um, to give you a sense of like, oh, right, I should make sure to take care of myself in sickness and in health, for rich or for poor, And so we're using the template of weddings for ritual. And what makes weddings different from, say, a graduation or any number of religious ceremonies is you're not just noting a season or noting that you have done a lot of work. You are making a promise. The vow is what the wedding hinges on and what separates the wedding concept from other types of ritual. And you can ritualize anything,
Mm-hmm.
but the idea that you stop and think about what it is that you're holding in your hand, what you're wearing, what the music is, taking that kind of care is basically an elaborate prayer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you could just pray and hold your hands, or you can have a rosary, or you can put a scent on, or you can light a candle. And so after a while, you're like, we could really do a lot with this, said ancient people. Wouldn't it be cool if,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I'm going to do a dance while you do a thing. And little by little, we develop rituals over thousands of years. And weddings serve a lot of purposes. So between two people, especially when they get together and they're thinking about babies. Babies are stressful. And so you want to make sure people stick together because next thing you know, people are like, you know what? I'm out. And so you can't say, I never married you because the whole town is like, I saw this.
Accountability through marriage.
Exactly. So that's very practical. In marrying yourself, there's an element of that too. First of all, you're witnessing yourself because one of the things I always encourage as the encouraging priestess, one of the many things that I do, but that character really holds in so many ways, is I encourage you to look in the mirror. Because if you just speak it out to a crowd or just speak it out to the wind, it doesn't land the same way as looking at yourself in the eye. And it's heavy. And so I started this as a festival thing for fun and noticed that immediately, no matter how fun you made it, the moment you had to look at yourself in the eye and say things like, I will forgive myself,
Mm.
suddenly it lands and you go, oh, and will you remember to forgive yourself? So you may not, but hopefully, if you do put some energy into the vows, and even in the festival version where people are walking around with cotton candy and they've just seen a band and they're like, what's this? We're like, oh, you marry yourself. Ha ha, ha, how fun. And we give you like rings and costumes and a little bouquet and whatever. You keep the ring. And then you walk down a little aisle, which also, everything has meaning.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how fun you make it, there's something about leaving your friends behind. It's just you. And then you meet the priestess, and I take you in the back. And one of the things that we encourage is a little quick banishing, a little divorce of past selves or things that get in your way. And there's so many rituals in the world about getting over a hump, getting over an obstacle. You jump over a broom, you smash a glass. And it is a division between your past self and your future self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're constantly dealing with thresholds. But when we stop and honor them, it makes it easier and more meaningful. And so all of this plays into it. When you do this festival version, which is how I've done so many people over the years, because I haven't been doing it every weekend or something. Um, because it's a lot. Everything is created for you, just like when you go to Las Vegas and you go to do your quickie Elvis wedding or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. They have all this stuff right there.
Yeah.
And so we do have these wacky bouquet items, for example. And the idea is you don't fall into traps of what the bridal industry has put
Mm-hmm.
out. Your bouquet may just be a blade and some pearls. Like, how do you express yourself? And the tagline is no bride, groom, or in-laws required.
Mm-hmm.
So when you know that, who you are, and especially for my private clients where we really get into it, and that's what I'm writing a book, and the more comprehensive book really digs in, is when that is very clear, then the people that you choose around you hopefully reflect your true self, and you're less likely to bullshit yourself,
Mm-hmm.
which means you don't bullshit others. And so it helps your relationships. And so marrying yourself ultimately is a reality check.
Mm-hmm.
When you started it, did you start it as something for yourself, or did it start as like a performance ritual?
The whole thing started when I heard Rob Brezhny talk about uh, a group of people in front of him. He had them recite some vows that he threw out at them. And it sounded really fun. He's like, these people married themselves. And I read about it and I thought, well, that's fun, but I want to really do it. I want to do it for real. But I think what's great about a group situation like that is it starts it. It's a kickstart. It's just like that. And it gets you going. And maybe in that moment, you did cross a little threshold. Maybe you did make some vows that will stick. So it's very possible that group element is effective.
Mm-hmm.
And that landed with me, but I wanted more. So then I went in, and this is like the year 2000. And it's great. Marrying yourself you could do it every day. You just in front of you could do whatever you want. But to really take the time to do that is going to create a more meaningful ritual. And I had no clue. I'd never been married to anybody. So it was very interesting to get into it. And in the year 2000, I was in the middle of a breakup. That kind of thing, a milestone birthday or any birthday, anything that signals to you a shift is a great opportunity, though it's fine anytime. Those moments have significance. So I was in the middle of a breakup, which was typical of stupid patterns. And I knew that I needed a pattern disruptor. I did not have the words for that then. I have all kinds of words now. And so I went and I was in Los Angeles, and I'm not from there. And I was staying at a friend's house. He had a beautiful yard. I'm sure I freaked out his neighbors. He went to work and I did this in his backyard. And I'm not going to get into all of it now, but I learned a lot from the process. And I discovered that I have an inner bride and groom, and I have a lot of inner voices that were giving me all kinds of instruction. I was like, who needs in-laws? They're already inside, and all the expectations and all the stuff and what's okay and what's not okay. And I ended up choosing colors that I would have never normally chosen. Like there was all this inner rebellion that was really fun and things that needed to come out. And it was so therapeutic, even just doing it kind of as a fun thing.
Yeah.
Also, I strongly recommend a honeymoon. There's a reason why all these things exist.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how unseriously you take it, there's a reason why they exist. And if you give it energy, it's magic. It
Mm-hmm.
works. It works on all these different levels. Anyway, so that really was wonderful and great. And so I did that. Years later, with all this in mind, around 2006, there was a festival in England that I was already going to for something else, but I applied for theater of an audience of one, which is where instead of a group, you take someone aside and you give them like a little play. You give them an experience, an immersive experience or something. And I thought, well, marrying yourself is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do maybe 10 minutes a person, and I can do this many an hour, and I can do this for this many hours. And I created the performance. They did not take me,
Mm-hmm.
but I did a video. I laid it all out. I did all the work that applying for something
Mm-hmm.
forces you to think about. And so I turned around to my friends in New York and I said, should I just start doing this? I said, you have to do this. Are you kidding? So we started it at my friend's house where she does events. And we did this beautiful event. And that's when it started
Mm-hmm.
at the House of Collection in Brooklyn in
Mm-hmm.
2006.
Wow.
And then I started doing actual festivals.
Mm-hmm.
So parties, festivals are great because there's all this structure around it and you don't have to promote or whatever. Though I found it was very popular. And then once they line up, I also do tarot card readings. Once people know that there is something where they will get some personal attention, there is no danger of not enough people.
Mm-hmm.
So I did them at the Figment Festival in the UK for a thing called the Spill Festival and all these different places. And then I started doing private ceremonies. So people started to really do beautiful work for themselves. And the really fun ones for me are when a couple, as part of their pre-wedding, will marry themselves
Mm-hmm.
before marrying each other. And then when your partner supports you holding the ring and listening to you really speak your truth and supporting your truth, that is profound and sexy and awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's how that all has evolved.
Like, on the one hand, it's this, like, light and fun and festival thing, but I can see, even outside of the ritual and the performance aspect of it, like, it goes so deep, right?
It
I think
can.
that a lot of us potentially have struggles with loving ourselves, right? And being devoted to ourselves and showing up for ourselves. So, like, it must like, you can go on the into this very deep level with it, right? And does that come up in more in your one-on-ones is, like, how people have to work through stuff to be able to look themselves in the mirror and say those things to themselves.
So what's interesting about the festival version is it's quite sugar-coated and cute.
Mhm, yeah.
And then what happens is you meet what I call the host guides.
Mhm,
And the host guides are just like a receptionist kind of a thing, and they explain the process and how, okay, so you get your costume, you get your bouquet, and the costume is like a bunch of things just for you to pick. And it could be like, and it's all sort of toy stuff, but like a suit of armor or a cape or something pretty. And I love when people say, I can do anything. It's like, it's your wedding. And the thing I keep repeating, it's your wedding.
mhm,
Nobody else. Anybody else is simply supportive, witnessing. And so as they start to even pick a costume, that comes up. When they go to pick their bouquet, there's a few flowery things, but it's mostly interesting items that
mhm,
might express what you need. And suddenly there's an item and you go, I want this weird thing. I'm like, it's not weird. It's beautiful. What does that mean to you? And the host guides guide you through
mhm,
this. And the rings mostly are fun, but the ring symbolizes never ending. because you're with yourself from the moment you're born to the moment you die, which is why that festival version is called Till Death Do You Part, not Till Death Do Us Part. You're in it till the end. Everybody else comes and goes.
Right.
No matter how much you love them or whatever, there are moments when it's just you, right? And that's whom you have to reckon with all the time. So all that goes deep. And then the problem is someone in that situation, they're like, what do I write for my vows? So we offer multiple choice vows. And you write on the back, or you can add to them. You cannot use them. They're for inspiration.
Yeah.
But we also have a timing thing, so you can't just tick them off. And people will be all fast with everything else and then go, oh. And it says things like, I will love myself like those whom I most treasure. What does that mean? Who is that? Is it your grandmother? Do you love yourself as much as you love your grandmother? For example, there's a whole slew of them. I will not speak unkindly of myself. I will be generous even when I feel broke. I try to touch on a bunch of different things. And that's when some people who are in the middle of therapy or whatever go like, oh, good one. Oof. Yeah, these are great. Other people start to tear up and say, I can't do this. They put everything away and they walk away. And I say, keep the vows. We even give you a plastic sheet so you can mess them up a little bit. And people will email me because my email's on there and they'll say, can I do this again? Can I, and and like that. So that's the quickie version.
Yeah.
So I do workshops where we make it as fun as possible, but we delve into, if you're going to say a vow, you can do celebratory vows because any garden needs to be maintained. And you can inherit a very well-maintained garden. You still have to weed. You still have to water. You still have to make sure that those things stay, because otherwise things break down, because that's life. So you can be very cheerful about it, but maybe you celebrate the hard time you already went through. That's still recognizing that you went through it and that it wasn't easy. So you can structure it however you want, but mostly we have a lot of issues. And to say I tend to have loops and I have loops of regret, or I have anxiety, or whatever comes up, rage issues, whatever people have. And to know that that's probably going to happen at some point. What is your tactic for dealing with it? Now, traditional vows basically just say, hang in there, just get through, have another baby, humanity continues. And we used to live to 45, and maybe that was enough. Baby's alive, baby's having another baby, I'm done. Good, humanity continues. I would like to aspire to better. I'd like a better world than that. And so if you know that you tend to do a thing, what's your tactic? What are things you can do? This is where therapy comes in. And maybe it's you take a hot bath, maybe you call someone, maybe you have a therapist, maybe you do cognitive behavioral therapy. And there's a thing where you stop and just look around the room and say, I am not 2 years old. My mother is not here making me feel crazy. I'm the one making me crazy. But I'm in this room and I am safe. And I can look at the table, at the ceiling, at the thing. I am here. Friends are nice. There is water. Breathe, breathe. And so vows, I often say something like, and when I feel blah, 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 I will do X. And if you can make a gesture that reminds you of that, and that is a kind of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Like where you stop and go, or whatever, you breathe or whatever, I will breathe, I will journal, I will, do a thing. And to know that you can't, you'll not always remember, but when you do, you've taken care of yourself in a way that you can go, and we need this, because the world will not always do it for you. We know, of course. So, this is how that helps, because it is dark, and the whole point of vows is to help you when it's not nice.
Yeah.
It's making me think about the vows that I have taken in life. And I was supposed to get married in 2009. And the funny thing, I mean, like, that wedding didn't happen. And when I was thinking about our vows, I couldn't. Like, I didn't want the canned vows. I wanted us to write our own vows. I couldn't write anything. I just couldn't. If, like, that was a sign enough that this wedding wasn't supposed to happen, right? It's, like, so confronting that I didn't feel lovely human, care about him, but I didn't feel that thing that I was supposed to feel. Maybe supposed to is the wrong word, but that I knew that I wanted to commit to this person, right? And so it's interesting that I had that experience, and then I did get married later, and we wrote our own vows. And obviously, this is different than marrying yourself, but was
Oh,
that
it's very similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's the same thing because you contain multitudes.
yeah,
Only you're really stuck with them.
yeah,
You're really stuck with them.
yeah,
So that's why you need to make peace.
yeah.
But marrying someone else is exactly that experience.
And so we wrote our own vows, and they honestly, it was the sort of the funny, cutesy ones that stand out in my head. Like, I will watch professional tennis match with you like every other month, like
But
something
how do you
like that.
feel about the tennis match?
Well, it's turned into, I watch tennis every night. So
Oh, okay.
we, like, I jokingly go back, like, this wasn't our vow. This is not what I committed to.
But a contract.
but
It's a contract.
right. But that's the thing. It's sort of like I can go back to that moment when we were writing it and we were talking about the things and that relationship that we had with one another at the time to kind of like remember that when times get tough.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you're saying, it's like that thing that brings you back into how do I work through this challenging aspect of whatever I'm going through, whether it's with another person or with myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I can relate to that very, very much.
Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful thing to do as opposed to just say, oh, we hired this great guy. He's going to officiate. And then he just says a bunch of vows that make sense traditionally.
Yeah.
Um,
I got married by Elvis in Vegas. So
but you can make Elvis say anything, of course.
Right.
And he will, you know. But if you don't think them through, maybe some resonate, some don't. What is your contract? So you can do it, of course, anytime, and you can just sit on a sofa and figure it out. But it's beautiful to ritualize it so that it's a mnemonic device.
Mhm,
Ritual
mhm.
is a mnemonic device. And so when people say, oh, you're desanctifying marriage, on the contrary,
Mhm.
I'm actually raising it to a level where you put it in your body for real and you're not just you're making tradition burn its flame in a way that really makes sense to you,
Mhm.
as opposed to just doing it out of obligation,
Mhm.
which then becomes false. And this is how things fall apart. Things can fall apart anyway, because when you marry another person, first of all, you may end up on different paths that you didn't expect. Um, and also, it is a huge endeavor to not just live with someone, travel with someone, have money situations together. You eat together a lot. How does that work out if you have different ideas about food? And all of this needs to be negotiated. So your negotiating patterns have to be strong. A combination of alignment, where you just like the same stuff and it's easy, and how you negotiate the things where you're different. And if you've been inauthentic with yourself, you are not presenting an honest thing to this person. So you're not doing
Right.
anybody any favors. And one of the words that comes up is a word called sologamy. And it freaks people out because it sounds like you want to just be alone for the rest of your life.
Oh, solo. Okay, got it.
It's like, define.
Yeah.
Yeah. So monogamy is where you choose one person.
Mhm.
Polygamy is several. And sologamy is this idea of you're alone.
Mm.
First of all, yes, it's ideal that you should feel great by yourself
Yeah.
and don't need anyone.
Mhm.
However, you have people around you,
Mhm.
whether it's through work, through neighborhood, through family. Those are your platonic relationships. And then there are your sexual relationships. And then there are the ones where you are more in partnership. Roommates. And your spouse is roommate lover, travel partner, eating partner. It's so many people.
Mm-hmm.
You're so many people.
Mm-hmm.
You may be really strict about some things and really wild about others. Who are you? And then if you're not really clear with that, you're not going to negotiate in a way that's authentic, and you may develop regrets. And then maybe passive aggression because you're trying to be nice, or nice, nice, nice. And then you freak out. One of the vows is, I promise to handle this in time before I freak out. If you're prone to that. And it's very funny watching people with the clipboard and they're going through them and you see where they snort.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I know what they're in. I know. Got you. I got you. And they come from my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
And of course you can write your own and adjust them and do whatever, but certainly when we sit down to really do them, not really do them, because those can really be perfect. When you take the time to really hash it out, it's so useful.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it has a practical element to
It's
it. For
completely
sure.
practical. And it helps you when you negotiate with anybody else, maybe just your roommate, and so it's not about choosing to be alone for the rest of your life. It's about choosing how you're with yourself so that if you choose to be with someone else, you feel good about it as much as possible.
Yeah.
You know,
It feels like a great solution to codependency, right? Because you're choosing yourself first, and then you can more independently enter into relationship with
it's less
someone else.
needy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can say, oh, I'm really leaning on you for this, and know that you're doing it,
Yeah.
and not falling into subconscious patterns where you're just hiding behind obligation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I should. I don't know. But then you're like, and then you do really weird stuff like, I don't know, hide toothpaste and say, well, I know where the toothpaste is or whatever. Oh, your breath stinks. Who knows? Like, it's like, well, I couldn't find the toothpaste and I'm tired. That like you do just crazy stuff. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. But,
You're not
whatever it
hiding
is.
toothpaste.
We have so much toothpaste. That's why I know I can safely say this without worrying that anyone's going to say anything. No, in fact, the way we handle at home things like preferences is we have a lot of both.
Mm-hmm.
When you come to our house, we have both kinds of toilet paper. We have 3 bathrooms. And there are 2 kinds, because he likes Scott and I like good paper. It's a thing. So
Same in our house, but
People prefer Scott.
it's a soft, right? Like it's Scott.
It's like that one ply like office
Yeah.
toilet
it's because
paper.
some people prefer to be squirrels and make mounds, and then they don't know what to do with the thick one. And they're like, and then I feel like it's, who knows? You hear all kinds of crazy stuff. And if you're a Scott person, like my man, and you should have all the Scott you want. You'd have all the RV friendly toilet paper in the world.
Right.
And that way everything's great. And so whatever. The point is you work through it and you do it in a way where you're both happy.
Yeah.
And then it's easy. And it was really cute because in the beginning, he had this gorgeous lion toilet paper holder that held his newspaper that I'm always making fun of it. Sorry. But he was so happy. And then I had the normal one. And then he got before we knew about Game of Thrones, by the way, this is a long time ago. And he got me a dragon holder for mine. And so it was really cute. And that's when we only had 1 bathroom. And so that's how that, but then when we moved and had more bathrooms, we made sure that, and then we realized that our friends really have all these different preferences and everyone's happy. We're lucky that we can afford to do that. We're lucky that we can do this. For the things that you can't, you work through it and you figure something else out. But if abundance in something that you feel is inexpensive can happen, do it. Don't argue. Get both.
Yeah.
And if it's something where it's a food thing or whatever, there is a way, there is a path forward. And if there really isn't, maybe you shouldn't be together. Maybe you should just be friends or whatever and not marry. But if you don't know that about yourself and you turn into a monster, that is unfair to this person whom you clearly care about. And like that.
So how often or how many times, like, what's your relationship to this marrying myself um experience? Do you do it regularly? Are you, you know, how do you tune into when you need to do it, or do you have a sort of a schedule that you follow?
Oh, God. So here's what's really funny. I did it in 2000. And then I started officiating. And I had a milestone birthday this year. I turned 60. It was a big one. And I decided to basically, I wouldn't call it renew my vows because I feel like I had pretty new vows in the way that I phrased them. I'm sure they echoed some of the stuff,
Yeah.
but I wrote them from scratch. And Teresa was there because she was doing beautiful sounds for us with the sound bath. And I rented a space. I took it very seriously. This was not just my friend's backyard. How I did it in 2000. He had a great backyard. But I was all alone then. And one of the things I realized, and not everybody needs this, but I need someone else there. It's one of the reasons why I think officiating is great. I think even if they're just as a witness, um, to officiate means to help the person have a little structure. It also means you are less likely to be distracted. Back then, I didn't have a cell phone, but could you imagine all by yourself? You might cheat and be like, wait, like, who knows how seriously you might take it. We have a lot of ritualists, I'm sure, watching this, and they may be very good at ritual. And so some people might do this all the time. I always say maybe naked in your bathroom, add glitter. You can do whatever you want. But the funny thing is I really hadn't. And I really felt like I needed it. And so I went all out. I chose a birthday moment. I rented the space. And what's really important to me is to be surrounded by people who really get it. And just because someone loves you, they may not be right at your ceremony because this will trigger people who haven't, quote unquote, done the work or are open to this sort of thing. And they may not even realize it. Invite them to the party. Make them feel part of your event. They don't need to be part of your ceremony. Take the ceremony seriously. And that's when I feel like take the ceremony seriously for it to feel important. And that means embracing some cringe. You may feel silly. So you need people around you or person, or maybe no one, to make sure that when you look in the mirror, and I do suggest the mirror, in 2000, I did not do it in front of the mirror. I journaled, did not have the same impact. And so I've been the one to tell people, don't look at the floor, don't marry the curtains, look at your eyes, because people they're like, they can't, it's hard. And there I was after years of giving so much advice, going, ooh, that stings. Saying this thing. And the way I did it for this particular ceremony, because most of my friends have priestess vibes. So it was like inviting a gang of priestesses, right? It was really great. And they're so patient and so sweet. And I did a number of different things to commemorate the moment and for me to understand where I am at this point in life, so that my vows also have resonance also for them, because then they take it out into the world. And we did a few things about that sort of thing. Anyway, so I had a bowl that I passed around, and then all the vows were in there, and everybody picked one out and then read one. And then I had to repeat what she said into the mirror. And it was pretty fun because it was not like fortune cookies, I'd be like, oh, I got a good one, you know. And I don't know that I would go to those lengths next week. But I could certainly do something similar. And
where do you have those vows from that experience? Where do you keep them?
they're in the same copper vessel, and they are next to these envelopes from that same ceremony where I went through each decade and talked about my life from each decade and what I might need from it and who I was and that sort of thing. And so that little pile is still sort of in a very sacred spot in my office.
Mhm.
Um, and it's interesting because just before this, I actually revisited some of it. And it's good to do that. It's good to not just shove them at the bottom of a pile. And occasional and when you read them, you rekindle that. You wake that up again.
Mhm.
And it's good to see. And you can say, oh yeah, oh no, that one needs needs a little polishing.
Can you tell us about this book that you're working on around this topic?
Yes. So I've been writing the entire 20 years in my journals about my experiences and all this stuff. And I decided to finally compile a book. It was so overwhelming that I decided to do it in two forms. One is more of an intro, and I'm calling it a field guide, and it's a 20-page book. Right now it's called A Private Archway,
Mm.
Marrying Yourself, Your Projects, and Other People Too. And it's about ritualizing your commitment and to some extent self-initiation. Because if you consider that a wedding is a portal from your past self to your future self, and you're doing that every minute, right? The past goes every second. And are we doing this now? Now, now, now? Uh, but you stop for a moment and say, I'm going to here. And then everything going forward is with this new intention or whatever. And so just explaining these things always takes a lot, and doing a few little exercises, introducing the ideas. I feel like I'm always going through that first. So I thought the field guide was a great way to do that. And it is your own private archway. It's just you. I always say it's your wedding. They're like, but
Mhm.
what do you want? So the field guide is like 1 page away. I wanted to have it ready for this. It will be ready for when this airs.
Yes.
Because I'm 1 page away from that. Meanwhile, there's so much I can't fit in there. And that's great because it's helping me structure the larger book, which may have the same name. I'm also considering Daggers and Pearls
Mm.
because that echoes making very personal choices in your bouquet that don't necessarily have a traditional element.
Mhm.
Who are you? What do you need? And what are you holding in your hand? And what does that mean? And it may not always be a pretty bouquet that you throw at someone. I do not recommend throwing the dagger unless you're very good at it. I have a couple knife throwing friends. Maybe and whoever gets that gets to throw. I don't know. Let's not go there. Um, what are you holding in your hands? What does it mean? What does anything mean? You decide.
Mhm.
Give it meaning. And no matter how silly it might seem, in fact, the sillier you feel, lean into that. Those issues have a place that need a little seeing. And maybe when you were a kid, you didn't have, you could just be a princess or a king or whatever. Uh, all these things that society throws at us. Maybe you're just a fawn. I don't know. Whatever. So the greater book, the more comprehensive book, dives deep because everything that doesn't fit in there is getting structured and thrown into the bigger one. And so there will be more exercises and more thoughts around all of it. And a lot of it is shadow work.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet.
And also fun stuff and event planning, because event planning is huge for any ritual, because you will feel silly at the end of your grand moment, realizing you cannot get everything at once out of the yard that you placed. And then you're in this like other mode that doesn't feel so grand. You are also the busboy.
The schlepper.
You are the schlepper. You are whatever. And you have to get okay with that part of you too, because you contain multitudes. You contain multitudes. Thank you, Walt Whitman. So knowing ahead of time that that's coming, have the lovely basket or just get okay with just schlepping. And whatever it is, the more you plan ahead, the nicer it is. So I throw in all that kind of stuff. It's just funny to look at and go, oh, yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And I'm thinking a lot about the thing you have to keep telling people over and over. It's your
Oh,
wedding,
God.
which kind of speaks to how much in our society, when people are getting married, they're not always doing it for themselves, right? You're doing it for your mother-in-law, and you're doing it for your dad, and you're doing it for all of these other reasons. And the dresses have to be purple because this bride's, like there's so many other people sitting on top of that. And to release someone from like people can't even see that they can be released from that, and you have to keep reminding them that it's their wedding and they get to decide. This is one thing about weddings that makes me crazy in today's world.
Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Because you could just sign a paper if you're doing it legally.
Mhm.
If you're doing it legally, that's all the government wants, is to make sure that both of you pay your taxes.
Mhm.
That's it. It's a spying element, right?
It's an economic contract. As the former divorce attorney,
Mhm.
it is. I mean, you are entering an economic contract with somebody else when you sign that paper. That's all the law cares about.
That's all the law cares about.
Yeah.
And so the rest of it is, in many ways, just a party.
Mhm.
And that's nice.
Yeah.
So when you vow to the government, you vow to make sure that you both keep an eye on each other, because your taxes are, you can be responsible for this other person, or you file separately. But just because you file separately doesn't mean they say, well, your spouse, la, 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 la. Hmm. you know, so really,
Well, and it's also not to get
oh yeah,
super caught up in it, but it's setting the rules for when the marriage ends, right? Like that's how the law looks at it. And it's unless you enter into a prenuptial or
Mhm.
something like that, it's like once you sign it and do it, like you've entered into this situation. And when it ends, there are rules that are applied to it because you did that, right? And it's so not loving, it's
no.
not romantic, it's not meaningful at all. And, I even when I got married, I was like, well, do we want to be legally married? But with a child, it actually kind of is a little important to be legally married. It can
There are a
make
lot
your
of
life,
benefits.
yeah, it can make your life easier. Tax purposes, it does. I was like, that's crazy. I mean, right? It also impacts health insurance, and so there's all these
The
ways.
corporate thing,
Yeah.
all kinds of
Yeah.
insurance.
Yeah.
So I will always be my mother's daughter. She went through 3 husbands. And yet, for insurance, the spouse gets more benefits than the child. Like a spouse can inherit the insurance exactly. A child cannot. And it's like, well, I'm still here. Like, why are you my mom's pimp?
Right, right.
Insurance company.
Right, right.
But they are. And they encourage all these different things. And there is something to be said for a stable community and nation if you are forced on some level to make these contracts and to take unifying seriously and to take child rearing seriously.
Mhm.
I get it. Um
But
so
it's
but
capital.
clarity can help you do it and say, you know what, I'm not that into this person, but I feel like we can do this. And then it's almost like an arranged marriage, which has a strange sort of clarity to it because it doesn't have the fog of romance.
Right. Yeah. So, I guess bringing that in is just to say that the beauty about marrying yourself is it's really at the heart of what I think marriage should be. Marriage shouldn't be caught up in capitalism and
Mhm.
all of these, regulations around how people can be connected to one another. It is this pure, like, honest commitment to oneself. And I love the fact that by doing that, it can help you commit to somebody else
Mhm.
in a
Yeah.
more honest, authentic, potentially successful way.
Ideally,
Yeah.
yeah. Um if you can get through conflict in a more graceful way,
Yeah.
you know.
Or like you said, like maybe I'm realizing it's not the right person, right?
It is a danger if people marry themselves and they are a young couple, meaning like the relationship is young. Um because it can bring that on. But if you save yourself a lot of money and hassle,
Yeah.
Learn it now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Says the wizened woman.
Yeah.
Well, over time you become wizened. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're with someone that you're doing quite well with, I think.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, it's good.
Yeah. I mean, I think age does help it. And not to go into my own journey, but I also had found Rob Resney's work at some point, and I think it was right before, like, I was doing a lot of this work for myself. Like, I had picked the wrong partners.
Mhm.
Why am I picking these people? What's motivating me? And so I was doing a lot of work about that and really understanding who I was, like, who am I and who do I want to show up in the world? How do I want to show up in the world? And I feel like that helped prepare me for calling in the right person or a better person. I should say the right person. But it was helpful to do all of that work. And I didn't do that when I was 35 and going to marry that person. I was like, I feel like I want to have a baby, so we should get married now. Huh? And actually, I said, let's have a baby. And he was like, no, shouldn't we get married first? I was like, okay, fine. Like that was not the right mindset for entering into a long-term commitment with somebody.
Because as you know, the child will figure out every possible fissure between you
Yeah.
so that he can pit you against each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is the job of every child to figure that out. She has a boy, by the way.
Oh, they know. Before they know. But yeah, so then I found Rob Resney's Marry Me stuff, and we did a sweet ceremony on formerly outdated in Kingston, New York.
Oh, right.
Eve Ensler married everyone.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was a 1 Billion Rising event, which is an organization that V. Eve Ensler started about ending violence against others. It started as against women and children, and it's sort of just grown as ending violence against people. And so we had a 1 Billion Rising event, and she heard about it and came to it. And I was like, will you please do this for us? And she said yes. And it was quite special, but it was those canned, I mean, it was straight out of his book, the vows from his Mary, I thee wed, or I forget.
Is that from the Pronoia book?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I think it's still, like you had said earlier, like, even if that just sparked a little awareness of, like, this notion of, like, wait, I'm special and I should be thinking about me.
And also you're stuck with you.
Right.
You may as well get along.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you're special.
Yeah.
You're always there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you are your own roommate, and if you don't like being in there because you're constantly people pleasing or you just feel irritated by whatever, something is irritating you. What is it? And it might be that you are compromising how you truly feel. And sometimes you do need to not express, but to know that you're doing that on purpose to make peace in a particular situation and not just out of a habit.
Yeah.
So the same way we use a toilet privately and we don't just go wherever like sheep, the heart needs to pee, find a spot, go do it. You don't have to just always unleash. And the same with having to hold your words or whatever. There is a moment for diplomacy. But if I'm making the sacrifice because this is going to be better in this situation, you are not being untrue to yourself if you're not fooling yourself.
Yeah.
You're being a negotiator, a diplomat in the moment.
Yeah. Compromise is a normal, healthy thing to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As long as it's done consciously, right?
That's it.
Intentionally. Yeah.
And say, this sucks. I need to get out of this situation. But for the moment, I'm going to make peace and we're both going to get some sleep or whatever.
Yeah. But compromising with yourself is you're not really doing that, right? And so that's why, to me, this is just a very, as you were describing it and saying some of the vows that you've had shared with others over the years. It really is like being so honest with yourself and really seeing yourself and listening to yourself, which we don't do oftentimes. The world is almost set up where it's not even acceptable to do that, you know? Especially, I should say, traditionally as women, I think have fallen more into that camp of like, I'm not allowed to have my own needs. I'm not allowed um, to have my own desires. My needs take sort of a back step. And that's certainly changing, but I still think that that's kind of like permeated into our being a little bit. And so this process helps you to see those things.
And so if you are consciously making those sacrifices, um, you can say, well, it's worth it for this reason, this reason, this reason, and to get okay with that. And the moment it's really not okay, maybe you need a vacation or you need a break or you need something. If someone can come in and help you, maybe you do a barter, it's not always financially feasible, but there's something that you can possibly do. And that's one of the things, even in tarot card readings, I do events and I will do it's like speed therapy. And I go through, several people in a few hours. And so often I get this over and over and over again. I'm overwhelmed, da, 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 da. And a lot of it is, can you schedule the nice as if it were urgent, just like your meetings or anything else? Um, can you get a babysitter for an hour longer? That kind of thing. Um, whatever it is, there hopefully is a way. And of course, there are parts of this world where things are just absolutely chaotic. And
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
we're
You
very,
just survive.
you just survive. And this is, I don't know, not enough. But for those of us who can, um, and, I feel like humans will always be problem solvers. So you're always going to create problems on some level
Mhm.
to solve. So hopefully you're not making up crazy stuff. You're actually dealing
Mhm.
with things that need, and we often will solve problems that are easier than the harder ones because that gives us a sense of satisfaction.
Yeah.
There's all that, we have all these tendencies. Um, so a lot of it also, I feel in the work that I do, certainly in the workshops, is what is a mindset that can make things better that is not a lie. So for example, a friend of mine feels that she should be able to vent at any moment. Um, I understand you need to vent and you're safe with me. But then she needed to go to DMV because her car was towed. And so I picked her up and I said, you can vent with me, but when we get in there, complaining to them is not going to help. It is impractical. And if you need anything from them, bitching is not the way.
Right.
But this is how I feel, and that's honest. And I said, we'll take a deep breath and find some compassion because nobody is happy to be here. It's like a job in hell, if you will,
Yeah.
where everyone who goes in is not happy about it. So if you brought them flowers or chocolates, even if it's just through your voice, you are making the situation better for everyone because you're still going to pay.
Yeah.
That's the reality. The reality is this is not nice. It feels random. Oh, you parked in the street the moment they decided it was a bad idea and whatever. I know. That's how the city makes money, blah, 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 blah. So she goes, you talk, I can't. I'm like, you know what? She goes, you can be sunny. I don't know where you find it. And I'm like, it's compassion because I don't want that job. But this is the job they found. And let's just see how it goes. So we went in and I was like, hi. And they were so shocked. And I laughed and I said, because it's not my car. Right. And then my friend just stayed quiet and paid. And she just watched because I said, how are you doing? And they're like, it's okay. It's, snowing out, blah, blah, blah. Turns out my friend's car was deep in the back. And I was just kind of nice. And then they immediately got on getting somebody to get the car out. And they did it cheerfully.
Mhm.
And the car came right out, and I said, "Thank you so much." And my friend was like, "Thank you." And she said, "I don't know where you find it." But she saw the value in it.
Mm-hmm.
This is somebody who considers themselves to be very evolved in other ways.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the hard moment where she feels targeted,
Mm-hmm.
it triggers a lot of things, because I'm sure she's been through a lot of hard stuff where maybe she was targeted.
Yeah.
In this case, it ain't personal,
Right.
really.
Right.
Yes, it was your car, but like, it's not like they were like, "Oh, it's your car." It was just, snow rolls and you didn't pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks. Um,
I feel like I just needed to hear that because I have to have a conversation with my contractor after this, and it could go in one of two ways. And now I'm going to enter it with more compassion and see how it
as
goes.
long as he's not snowing you, and say, "Okay, what do you need?" And that's always a thing to ask, is, what do you need to make this go better?
Yeah.
And maybe you don't want to do what they need,
Right.
but you can find out.
Right.
Things like that. And so I was raised around very cynical, negative people, and it took a long time to undo these patterns. And when I started being around more positive people, I started to 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 see the value in it. And then that attracted more positive people. And now I'm surrounded by you guys, for example. Pretty good. Good job, Gabrielle.
So how
Right.
is it going with the God? Speaking of positive people, the lovely people that you're around, you're doing this with the goddess party. I don't know how much you can share about how that experience is.
I can't tell you the songs.
Sworn to
No,
secrecy.
but you're doing some of this work with them, or are you still having those sessions with them? Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but how is it going with them, and what can you share, if
Mhm.
anything, about what's going to happen at the performance at the end of July 31st?
July 31st and August 1st at Tempo Performing Arts Center in Kingston. Um, Shauna Falana is the leader of the Goddess Party. It is a rock band and choir with up to 40 members, all women. That's how it's gone. It's all women. It is. And we've been together since 2023, I think. And that's how we met.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Um, so it has been an incredible nexus of wonderful humans. And each person that I meet in the Goddess Party brings so much power and interestingness. Everybody you meet is uh, just a powerhouse of interesting stuff. They do whatever they do really well. And it's been such an interesting experience. So Shauna Falana is a beautiful singer-songwriter. So the moment she said, "I'd like to get together and sing," we just went, you know, and it has continued now over the years. And I'm not surprised, especially because she lived on the West Coast for a while, that she also had heard about marrying herself for many, many years. And she said, I love what you're doing. I've always wanted to do a wedding to myself, and I want to offer this to the community. And will you be part of it? And I said, absolutely. I mean, I've been with the Goddess Party literally since the first rehearsal as a choir member, but she is bringing me in as a kind of officiant for this. So my role in this particular event is different. And so there's a lot of depth to this because it's not just a concert. We are bringing in elements of self-marriage to this, which is why it's called the wedding and why it's being promoted as a ceremony, though we will be singing and the band will play and all that. Um, and so this is very much Shauna's brainchild. I feel honored to be part of it.
I think I have the Rob Gresney book because of Shauna. I'm pretty sure she's
Oh,
the first person to tell me about it. So
not surprising.
yeah.
Not surprising. I'm a big fan. So Pronoia is the book we've been talking about by Rob Brezhnev, which is the opposite of paranoia. And that's his kind of thinking. And it's something that uses snark and a fun way of speaking. If you've ever seen his syndicated astrology column, You don't have to believe in astrology. He's a fun read, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like that he is part of a movement that I did not grow up with in the 70s and 80s. It is probably something that has come about as a reaction to shifting gears from a traditional mindset where you're supposed to just follow the rules to really designing your life in a way that's meaningful and making it work with traditions. So the traditions that work will survive. Even if they get a little update here and there, if they don't line up with who you are, they die. So if you want traditions to stay alive, they need to still have relevance. So I'm not anti-tradition at all. I'm into just polishing that silver so it stays lovely, you know? And then you see things that are, and then you fix that. So Shauna is very much into this concept and has brought it about in this production. So that much I can say. And the Goddess Party members are also marrying themselves as part of this. And we're doing a private workshop, for example, to get everybody to really understand it. So they're not just going to be singing or making the moves in some kind of blank way. On the contrary, the whole point of this is understanding what you're saying and why. And making it relevant individually, and hopefully that translates to the audience who will be invited to partake if they like. Or they can just witness or whatever, but that's the invitation is to the wedding, which is technically to yourself.
So the audience can expect, people coming to the wedding can expect to both witness people marrying themselves and have the opportunity to marry themselves.
I believe that it will be more of a group situation where we will invite people to commit to themselves. If you don't want to, it's fine. It's an internal process.
Yeah.
And so you may see people around you who are really into it. And maybe you decide that some of it is right for you. It's your wedding. So hopefully it just opens some doors at least. And for some people, this may be a real portal for them. And that's the invitation.
Beautiful. Can we go back to something you said earlier? You said you have knife thrower friends.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm
That's how I
thinking
roll.
about that. Right. And I'm thinking about that. And I know you have a background in theater and obviously performance. And so can you just kind of help us understand a little more about your background, which I think led you more into being able to take on this role of officiant and have the imagination and wherewithal and resources to create this idea of these ceremonies that people have, right? Like me working at my desk at JP Morgan wouldn't be like, oh, here's a way we can have people marry themselves, right? So I feel like where you've come from and where you've been, I'm sure we can't get into all of it because it's a beautiful, like, multi-layered history that you have, but I wonder if you can just touch on a few things in your background that you think led you to where you are as this officiant and the encouraging priestess and your knife thrower friends.
For example. A shout out to Ambrose, by the way. Just he's my knife thrower friend specifically. So I was in rock bands, as one does, living in New York City. I grew up in Miami. I left at 17, and rock and roll was my life. That was 1983. So that was an incredible time for music. And I loved Kate Bush. I liked anything weird, anything that was expressive. I went to this special program in high school for the performing arts called PAVAC. I was one of the initial members before it even had a building, all this kind of stuff. So I was into theater, musical theater. I didn't really like musical theater music particularly. So I'm more leaning towards the Hedwig world more than, say, Carousel or something. Great respect for all musical theater. I just really loved rock and roll. So.
And you were a singer?
I was a singer. I was a terrible singer. I was somebody who loved music. I was really into dance originally. And I had a huge breakthrough around singing, which I still work through. I have to rehearse a lot, but I actually ended up with a record deal. I ended up getting great reviews. I ended up being able to sing in front of huge audiences and entertain them around the world. I toured and I played festivals as I had many bands, but Saint Eve was the one where I literally unlocked something
Mhm.
that was in my expression. And
Do you know how that happened?
yes, rage. I finally unleashed a bunch of rage, honestly. Um
And
I ended up breaking off a bunch of really bad relationships before the self-marriage thing. This was long before that even. Where I had a very oppressive boyfriend, I had a very oppressive producer, and it was all situations that I realized I'd created.
Mhm.
And I just had to break up with each of them because there was no way to go forward without continuing those patterns. I was not graceful about it. I have regrets about how I handled it, but I had to just move on.
Mhm.
Um, and I remember going to the studio where I had been working on all these songs, and it was very hard for me to sing them perfectly. So I had to rehearse a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. And there was all this, I wasn't playing music, I was working. And suddenly I got playful about it because I was like, oh, these guys are gone. I could like, ah.
Mm.
And I come in and my co-writer is ready to record me and the 20 takes to take the one thing. And I got it in the first try. He goes, oh, you've been rehearsing. And I said, actually, no, I kind of just been partying or something. I don't know. And then next take, like inspired. He's like, what is going on? And I was like, don't question it. I feel good.
Mhm.
But it was that. It was that I had to let go of people who meant well, but we had terrible patterns. And it created these weird environments where they were unpleasant and allowed to be that. And then they weren't quite as respectful because I put up with it, but they saw talent, but something. And, there's always something good. Like, it's very rare that a relationship is 100% bad. There's a lot of good.
Mhm.
But if the bad outweighs the
Mhm.
good and there's no way out, get out. If you can, get out, So that's how that happened. And then I became what I feel is a good singer. And you can listen to my tracks and those were sung in ways that weren't overlabored because
Mhm.
I actually felt free enough to express myself. So that's why I'm really into it. So there's that. So there's that whole, and also what happened in the middle of the rock and roll world is you have a band. Back then you went into the Village Voice and you tried to get musicians to show up. You didn't have enough money. So you had to make all these negotiations with them to be in your band. They didn't always want to play it the way you want it. I went and recorded by myself.
Mm.
And I was just like, I don't know, I have tracks. It was kind of uncool to play to track if you were in the rock and roll scene. Didn't know what to do. My band imploded one day because, oh, the drummer's leaving for LA and this guy, and somebody's, and I was like, I'm going to have to get all new members. Right around when I met some lovely drag queens who sang to track or lip synced, looked beautiful, and made enough money in one song sometimes in nightclubs. Certainly not rock and roll nightclubs. And my stuff was electronic rock. It had a beat that would work in these clubs. But I kept going toward the Arlene Grocery sort of world, which is this very rock and roll
Mhm.
nightclub where you show up and you just set up your band and you hopefully bring enough people, blah, blah, blah. These guys were curated and they looked beautiful. And I said, is it okay that I'm genetically female or just be fabulous? Okay. Just dress up and just work. All the cliches there for a reason. And they were correct. And I thought, okay. So then I took my music, took out the vocals so I could sing them live or lip sync if the situation. And I'd say, well, what's the theme? And they're like, well, wear something with wings. Okay. And they would pay me the same as lugging drums up and down stairs with a band rehearsing at $35 an hour, $25 an hour. It means you never rehearse enough. La, 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 la. And suddenly I'm rehearsing at my house. I can do this. I can afford it. And I put the money into clothing. And I started to become kind of this low budget Grace Jones, where I would show up in costume and work with themes. I was doing art parties. I was doing totally different kinds of venues. And through that world, I was around more event planning. And then that thing of, well, how do you fill out the stage when it's just you? And sometimes an event producer might do it, but I realized that video would be a great way. So this was back when I was literally taking 2 VHS and making like new video out of like found obtainium,
Mhm.
you know. And then software got cheaper, and I managed to get like an early version of Apple software, and managed to make my own videos and started shooting and started doing. So I became like a little filmmaker and editing. And then I was putting things online in QuickTime in 1998. It was like a little thing that would take 20 minutes to load.
Wow.
But if you sent it to Europe, you didn't have to worry about sending a DVD that may not arrive, that may not play. And they could see my show, and I started getting booked in Europe.
Wow.
And I would show up, and I would have maybe at least one friend or two and say, do you want to go? And fill out the stage. So I'd get dancers. And suddenly I was like creating these theatrical shows.
Mm.
And we would open up for bigger bands. I ended up doing some really beautiful, large shows with this thing, Momentum, but it never quite paid the bills. So video editing became more of a thing. And there are other aspects of my life. In the middle of all this, the gay scene was amazing, the club scene. The goths in the late 90s had money and loved what I did because it was, sort of dark and whatever, although it was danceable, and that thing of like being able to cry and dance at the same time is very goth. So they paid well. So that was one way that I got hired in all these different ways. And one of the things that the goth scene loved was absinthe, which was illegal. But I thought, I can make amaretto. I can make absinthe. So I started to just kind of throw it together and make absinthe. And I started throwing these parties, and I started throwing these crazy underground parties. So that really got my event planning chops in gear, because once I did that, people said, oh, I love what you did and the beautiful people you hired and the music you did. Can you do that for our corporation?
Mm.
There were a lot of cool hunters who wanted cool stuff. Certainly during the .com boom, they just wanted, what's the coolest? What's the coolest? And I sort of went like, this is cool. Here, my friends look amazing, and this is what they charge. And I got everybody paid well, etc. And so that taught me all the different things. Make sure that you have your coat check tickets, make sure that you have enough ice, make sure that you get there on time, make sure that you do, and I made all the mistakes and all the stuff. And then finally I just got good at it. So there was that aspect. And in my private life, normal spirituality didn't quite work for me, but I love anything spiritual. I really feel like there is divinity, and then there are paths, and they are all valid. So what spoke to me at the age of 18 was ritual magic. I have my issues with what I learned, but I learned great stuff. And so I was initiated into an order that taught me a lot of stuff: guided meditation, herbalism. Back then, no one had ever heard of echinacea. Echinacea, right? Like there are all these things, things that are so commonplace now, no one had heard of back in 1985. I learned tarot. I learned all these things, and it was exciting. It was very private. And then if you do a lot of these things, maybe you make a living. I still had a day job. And so I was a temp for a long time. I got very good at administrative stuff. So that was brilliant for things like sending mailers and merge mail. And I was very good at the admin.
Merge mail.
JP Morgan, girl, you know a merge mail when you see one.
I do.
And I got tired of it and worked for a clown company. That's another book. That's another book. Okay. So I worked as the office manager for a clown company. By the way, clowns make great goths. So when I needed background dancers, this all works together. I want you to know. So that helped with the event planning, because I started working parties. And so all of that together, right, means that I'm interested in ritual. I'm interested in designing rituals that actually matter to you. Part of learning traditional ritual magic is learning a lot of words you don't write. Not for everyone.
Wait, what do
great
you
for
mean
some
by
people.
that? Learn a lot of words that you don't write.
Like classic ritual magic, like Golden Dawn kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, there's this
Do
group
you know what she's
in
Tell
the
us
eight.
more.
I'll be quick. In the 1800s, there was a revival of spirituality around the world, in England and in New York State, actually. And it took many forms. And these organizations turned up with Freemason elements, and they created certain rituals that were published and that certain organizations followed to a T.
Mm,
I
mm,
was
mm.
part of that. And it was great for creating structure, but a lot of it just felt like gobbledygook.
Mhm.
The guy who ran it was great at it, but he'd say all this stuff about Egyptian gods or whatever, and some of it felt right, and some of it I was like, "What did he just say?"
Mm.
So as I'm that that organization broke up in its own way, a whole other story.
Another book.
Oh, yeah, maybe part of the clown thing. Anyway, but I learned such great stuff while I was there, adjacent to all of that, and while I have great respect for that work, I had to find something authentic to me. And so that's my personal life. And then I start doing tarot at events because when people call up a clown company, they want something for their kid, but also their 40-year-old husband's having a birthday. What do you have besides a balloon maker? And I'm like, well, what about tarot? So I started reading tarot at events in the 90s. And so that was fun. You dress. And so the same drag queen skills. You show up at the party, but you read tarot. So maybe I sing, maybe I read tarot, maybe I hook up your bar. I don't know. So, la 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 la, 2006. What have you got? I know. And having the elements, being used to showing up with a lot of crap in a bag.
Mhm.
I'm good at all of that stuff.
Mhm.
That was long-winded, but I feel like it was thorough.
Yeah. And what I guess the question that comes up for me is, what are you doing those types of things now?
Those types of things. So I had a company called the House of St. Eve. And the House of St. Eve, the acronym is THOSE.
Mhm.
So it was those parties and
Oh.
those people. Hello, those people. And everyone's like, oh.
I mean, I've seen
But
you on social media doing tarot readings at different things and in costume in different ways.
oh,
Just be
yes.
curious, like, did you leave that world behind? Is it still a part of you? Like,
I am an avalanche of experiences, and the snowball has grown large. I'm a very large snowball of weird things. And I just say yes. Would you like me to read at your event? Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, look, it's free. Yes. 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 I just say yes.
Mhm.
Would you like me to do this, do that? And since then, I've added all kinds of other divination because they're very similar skills. I now do curio casting. I do lipstick print reading.
What's curio casting?
It's stuff. It's like a bone reading. So you don't always have to use bones. A proper bone reading is a whole tradition where you actually ideally find the bones or however you procure bones, and you clean them and you use them and they mean things. So this is similar to that, but I use objects that I find meaningful, and they're mostly like trinkets.
Mhm. I got you. I'm
And
curious.
so it's kind of fun, but you also have like a little map. That's how I do it. I create a kind of map where things land. It's literally the casting of lots.
Mhm. Okay.
Um, and I use that opportunity to give good advice. And I feel like it's all a trigger for intuition. And I try to say what comes to me, what feels truthful and helpful.
Mhm.
Um, I don't consider it necessarily reading your fortune.
Mhm.
I feel like
Mhm.
it's not fortune
Yeah.
telling. It's more, this is what I think. Does this resonate?
Mhm. Yeah.
That's really how I feel about all of it. And often I I ping things that matter and people find helpful even in these quick situations at events. And then also for private readings, whatever works. I can look around a room and start feeling things and saying things that feel true, and hopefully they are. And often it works.
Mhm.
I'm feeling called to ask the question about, is there something that is on your bingo card that you haven't done yet? Obviously, like, I'm guessing publishing a book is an important milestone or accomplishment or however you want to define it. So, and we know that that's going to happen.
Yes.
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 But is there anything else that's like a part of you that you've met over the years that knows that there's still something else that you want to be doing?
Maybe. So everything I do, even if it's just like a rock album or something, has meaning. Because I'm the big weird snowball, right? That just keeps accumulating information and experiences. And so it all feeds into it. As I watched the world become somehow more cruel after I felt like we were making some progress, um, there is at least one play I would like to write that will be a very silly play that has a lot of depth.
Mhm.
And at some point, I don't know where the clown company world memoir the clown manager bootlegger story comes into play. That may be a TV series or a screenplay or a novel or something, but that story needs to be written and not just a pile of notes. I always start with just a pile of notes, phrases, ideas, and that'll probably contain an amalgam of a lot of people. So you may recognize yourself partially in any number of people because there's so many people involved that you can just sort of make these amalgams. So I'm probably covering my ass early on that one. But so those are the two things that I feel like I should really do that's occurring to me at the moment.
Yeah.
The play I think would be really fun. And it's basically a roommate situation with pets. And it's called The House Cats. It's written from the cat's point of view. And it's an opportunity for actors to put their butts in other people's faces. Because that really drives a point home. But basically, we're all the same but differently shaped.
Yeah.
So I don't know when that's happening. The book needs to happen first. And then we'll go from there. And who knows? I'd love to do some public speaking. I love to reach out to people. But I also am an artist and I want to make things that aren't just nonfiction. I really do love expressing myself through an artistic medium, whether it's maybe painting something that's totally for fun, or some kind of visual art. But really my medium is more with words and music and just multimedia kind of stuff. And that's it at the moment.
That's a lot.
Well, we'll see. It's on the to-do list.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start with the to-do list.
Do you have a sense of when the Daggers and Pearls book might be coming out, or we're not sure yet?
My goal is before the end of 2026, which I think is doable because on some crazy level, I'm imagining it in the fall. But at least if it's written enough to then be typeset, which is a whole other thing, getting the photos right. There's that whole aspect that makes it take longer.
Right.
But the writing, I feel having the field guide basically done, like this week, I swear. And it's June. What's today?
June 9th.
June 9th, 2026. Yeah.
This one says June 8th, but
that's when this was written.
That's when she.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was yesterday. Look at that. I already gave them so much to read.
And when you're listening to this, it's July 14th or later.
So the website is encouragingpriestess.com. I've discovered that people have trouble typing that. So I bought serpenthalo.com because Serpent Halo is easier to remember and type for some reason. Because there's not that many.
It's less letters and
it's
syllables.
It's fewer letters, yeah. And
Serpent Halo mean to you?
Here's what's funny. So I wanted to do a podcast, and then I realized maybe I'll do a podcast, but I actually interviewed you, and I realized I was in over my head. I need to focus on the book first. maybe a podcast is coming. But if I do a podcast, I realize I want to make it in a very artistic sort of way and make it have more music involved and have it more of a story, and then have the interviews come in and out and have topics and not just, what are you doing? What's new? Oh, awesome. Which I love, but that's not the podcast that I necessarily want to create. So I was in over my head. That's been put aside for now. And one of the titles for that was Serpent Circle, because I love the idea of the Ouroboros. So the Serpent Circle is kind of like rural juror out of 30 Rock. So Serpent Circle looks great on paper, but isn't so fun to say. Serpent Circle, So I thought, let's sit down with this. And Serpent Halo came out. And here's the part that's funny. First of all, it was available, which I was kind of shocked. But then I realized that it goes back to St. Eve, which I hadn't planned on. I literally bought it. I was like, "Ooh, it's available." I bought it. And then I started to think about it, because I did this all kind of fast for whatever reason. Also, you need to move fast with those things. I thought St. Eve. I always wanted to St. Eve because I felt like she was martyred for the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And it's like, the tree of knowledge of good and evil is knowledge of good too. And so it puts things squarely in our camp. And humanity has definitely had issues with all of this. But I felt like Eve got a bum deal. And I almost imagine the serpent who got them to just take some responsibility and is also part of all these other goddess cults that Christianity took great issue with. Not going to get into that this time. So if you can imagine the snake Ouroboros sort of standing above her, if you will, all that kind of flashed in my mind, and it was like a little nod back to St. Eve that was completely unintentional.
Which was your performance name when you were on the circuit?
Yeah.
And so is your work available at the Encouraging Priestess and the Serpent Halo, or?
SerpentHalo.com will point you to all the stuff.
Okay.
And it might just go to Encouraging Priestess for now. But yeah, just encouragingpriestess.com. And serpenthalo.com will be part of that if you'd rather type that. Yeah, whatever's easier to type. It's probably what I'm going to put on business cards.
And the Goddess Party is coming up.
Yeah, and you'll have your field guides there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, well in advance, not August 29. No, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
It's just, here, I brought another box.
At the merch table.
Folks who aren't local, then they can go to your website to find all your stuff, to find you, to book you. Yeah.
I'm available. I say yes to things.
Available.
Yeah.
That was so much fun, Gabrielle.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to chat with us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening.